Hey guys, tonight we slip through perfumed silks and incense smoke into the inner chambers of a woman who didn't just break the rules of imperial China, she rewrote them. You're standing in the shadowed corridors of the Tang dynasty's grand palace, your slippers sinking into dragon-stitched carpets, your breath catching on the weight of unsaid things. Behind those lacquered doors, a grieving empress in mourning white, eyes sharp as calligraphy brushes, already plotting the undoing of everything that held her back. History remembers Wu Zetian as China's only female emperor, but her throne, it didn't land in her lap. She plucked it from her own son's hands, and not with motherly tenderness. You're about to watch her do it one elegant, ruthless move at a time. And honestly, you probably won't survive this bedtime story. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is over there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in 683 CE, and the mighty Emperor Gaozong is gone dead from years of illness and probably a touch too much help from Wu's medicinal tonics. You're his widow now, and everyone expects you to quietly step back, maybe retreat to a nunnery, or live out your days, fussing over scrolls and incense sticks. But instead, you linger. In his memory, you say. For the sake of continuity, you claim. But really, you're holding the empire together like a spider at the center of its web. Legs stretched wide across every corner of power. Your eldest son, Zhongzong, is now emperor. Or so the ministers think. But he's got that unfortunate trait, a personality. Worse, he starts handing out promotions to his wife's family and hinting that maybe, just maybe, he could rule without your daily supervision. That doesn't sit well with you. You're not ready to become the empress dowager who sits quietly behind the throne. No, you still sit on the throne, just with a silk curtain between you and the ministers. So, you act. One day, Zhongzong suggests promoting his in-laws, and you say no. He pushes back. You don't argue. You just oppose him. Just like that one decree, one signing ceremony. And your son is on a slow ox cart out of the palace, stripped of his titles and sent to live in provincial obscurity with a sudden taste for Buddhist philosophy and not much else. Your younger son, Ruizong, is next in line. But he's pliable, a paper lantern of a prince, doesn't speak much, nods a lot. You like that in a figurehead. So, you elevate him. But you don't hand over the reins. You rule in his name while he smiles nervously at state functions and signs what you tell him to sign. It's like running the empire with a puppet, but a very polite one who doesn't ask questions. But the court knows. Oh, they all know. They whisper it during their tea breaks, behind fans and scrolls and corners of gardens and under red lantern corridors. The empress is still in charge. The boy emperor is just for show. And the whispers become louder. Rumors start to stir in the capital about ghosts of dead princes, about strange dreams of dragons falling from the sky, about a woman who wears white but thinks in war colors. Still, your position isn't solid. Technically, you're just the dowager. You're supposed to guide, not govern. And so you keep the mourning robes on a bit longer. You press your palms together and say it's all temporary, for stability, for the people. Historians still argue whether Gaozong intended for you to hold the reins after his death, or if you simply saw the power vacuum and filled it before anyone else could. What's clear, though, is this: no one moves faster in a palace than a widow with unfinished business. To keep the ministers in line, you start rewarding loyalty in whispers and punishing doubt in rumors. That one general who questions your authority, he finds himself reassigned to a remote frontier. That scholar who hints that a woman should retire from politics after her husband's death, he retires early with a mysterious stomach illness. And yet, for now, you play nice. You still allow Ruizong to smile from the dragon throne. You still sit behind the curtain during official audiences, letting your son speak your words with a soft stammer. You still light incense every morning for your late husband and pretend you're not imagining how much easier this would all be without the need for figureheads. Behind closed doors, you write edicts yourself. You meet with foreign envoys in private. You adjust the empire's gears like an engineer tuning a machine, only you're doing it with chopstick and ceremonial robes. And here's your secret edge. You're not just ruling through raw power. You're ruling through culture. You sponsor Buddhist temples, make donations, and commission murals showing celestial approval. You elevate Buddhism, which venerates the feminine divine, over the more patriarchal Confucianism. It's not just theology, it's PR. People begin to whisper that maybe, just maybe, heaven approves of you. Quirky tidbit: you even create a new set of Chinese characters for your name, characters no one else has ever used. A bold move in a society that believes written language carries spiritual weight. If language is power, you just made yourself immortal on parchment. But you also know this, appearances matter. You keep Ruizong on the throne for now. You appear as the doting mother, the grieving widow, the necessary regent. But behind every ceremony, every procession, every suggestion whispered into your son's ear, it's you calling the shots. And soon, the game will get sharper. Because the moment people start believing they can wait you out, you'll have to show them what happens when a mother stops playing nice. So here you are, in the palace you once entered as a low-ranking concubine now. Incense coils above you in delicate spirals, and ministers bow so low their foreheads nearly brush the jade tiles. But it isn't your son they're bowing to, not really. It's you, Empress Wu, sitting behind that thin silk screen like a god behind clouds. Your younger son, Ruizong, wears the imperial robes, but his words, yours. His decisions, yours. He's like a ventriloquist dummy, soft-voiced and wide-eyed, nodding as you breathe power through him like wind through a flute. It's the perfect setup for now. Because in a court filled with paranoid bureaucrats and whispering nobles, appearing humble is safer than appearing hungry. But let's not pretend you're idle. You're very busy tugging strings behind that bamboo. Curtain. Ministers are summoned to private consultations. Eunuchs scurry with sealed documents. The treasury shifts according to your hand, and spies, well, they bloom like mushrooms after rain. You've turned the palace into a marionette theater, and everyone dances when you twitch a finger. Still, people talk dotto. They try to smile in your presence. They praise your motherly devotion, your stewardship of the realm. But behind closed doors, they're murmuring dangerous things, that it's unnatural, that a woman shouldn't be this close to the dragon throne, that Ruizong should take full control. Some whisper that maybe it's time for the empress to retire, to take her vows and become a nun like all good dowagers eventually do. You hear everything. Of course, you've trained your ears well. One of your strengths besides supreme political patience is knowing when not to strike. You let these murmurs ripen into recklessness. You let them grow brave. And then you pounced out one night. An official who's been particularly bold in his critiques mysteriously vanishes, not executed. No public drama, just gone. His home sealed. His family quietly relocated. Others get the message. Fear has a scent, and the court begins to reek of it. You also know how to reward loyalty. With titles and land, sometimes just with survival. You build a network of true believers. Some from old noble families, others from obscure backgrounds, who owe everything to you. You're shaping a new court, one that's loyal not to the Tang dynasty, but to you personally. The empress, the woman who sees all. Still, your position is unusual historically, scandalously so. Historians still argue whether you truly intended to claim the throne for yourself from the start, or if the continual incompetence of your sons simply forced your hand. You, of course, wouldn't dignify the question. You just smile politely from behind the curtain and continue running the country. Here's a detail textbooks often skip. You create a special office of secret police, led by loyal eunuchs and palace officials. Yes, it's as Orwellian as it sounds. Centuries before Orwell, they report directly to you. They investigate slander, corruption, treason, and probably who borrowed whose fan without asking. Anyone who speaks too freely about the empress gets a visitant, often a confession written under less than voluntary circumstances. You're building something new, but that kind of project requires tearing down the old. So you begin chipping away at the noble clans that have long dominated the court, their sons, reassigned to far-off posts, their daughters, conveniently overlooked in palace matchmaking. You fill the gaps with people of lower origin, men and women who were never supposed to be powerful but who now owe you everything. Here's a quirky tidbit. You even take court poetry contests seriously. You use them to gauge intelligence, to spot rising stars, to reward creativity and loyalty. One wrongly placed metaphor, one veiled critique, and someone's calligraphy brush suddenly runs dry. But you're not just watching your court, you're also watching your son. Ruizong is quiet, yes, but quiet doesn't mean stupid. Lately, he's been less compliant, less eager to defer to you in front of the court. His advisors are encouraging him to assert his authority, and one even suggests a dangerous idea, that maybe the Empress Dowager should step down. You don't punish Ruizong directly, he's still your son, after all, but you tighten the strings. One of his closest aides is arrested for corruption. Another is accused of harboring seditious text. Ruizong starts showing up late to court sessions. Eyes sunken, voice uncertain. The message is clear. You're still the hand on the tiller. Then you make a ceremonial power play. You begin holding court alone. At first, it's subtle. Ruizong is indisposed, so you step in. Then it becomes routine. Ministers come to see you directly, not your son. He's there sometimes, seated beside you like a slightly nervous paperweight. But everyone knows he's not in charge anymore. And then comes the twist no one expected. You order coins to be minted with your own image. This is huge. Emperors barely allowed their names on currency, but now your face, regal and unreadable, glimmers in the hands of merchants and peasants across the realm. It's a declaration carved in bronze. You are the center of power now. And people notice. Some are inspired, some are furious. All are watching. One high-ranking minister openly protests this change. He's executed for treason, quietly, with a forged confession. Another claims the coins are offensive to tradition. He's found guilty of slandering the divine order. Also gone. You don't mind the whispers anymore. Whispers are just proof that people are still breathing. And as long as they're breathing, they can still be made to listen. Your sons, your sweet, soft sons might have worn the crown. But you wear the throne. You've ruled from behind curtains with gloved hands and whispered commands. But now it's time for something sharper. Zhongzong, your eldest, the one you deposed with a raised brow and a well-timed decree. He's getting ideas again, or more. Accurately, others are putting ideas into his head. Exiled but not silenced. Zhongzong begins to gather sympathy. His mother dethroned him. The poor boy stripped him of his destiny. His wife's clan whispers to distant governors. Some ministers begin quietly floating the idea that he should be restored. Maybe Ruizong isn't up to the job. Maybe the empire needs a real emperor again. You know how dangerous nostalgia is. It smells like incense, but burns like fire. So you act, but not with open swords. That's too crude. You orchestrate a plot against yourself, an amateurish rebellion no serious scholar believes was real. It involves low-level officials and conveniently includes the names of Zhongzong's in-laws. The details are murky, the confessions suspiciously uniform, but it doesn't matter. The message is loud and clear. Zhongzong is accused of knowing about the plot. His household is ransacked. His wife's clan is decimated. Several relatives confess and are quietly removed from public life or, from life entirely. Zhongzong himself is spared for now. That's the maternal touch. A public execution would make him a martyr. Instead, he's placed under stricter house arrest, surrounded by guards who report to you and advise not to speak unless spoken to. Historians still argue whether the rebellion was real, exaggerated, or invented wholesale by your secret police. But the timing, impeccable, and the outcome, convenient. The most dangerous player on the board is once again powerless, his name blackened. His supporters in hiding. It's not just court politics anymore, it's family politics. You've gone full Shakespeare, and you're playing both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth in alternating scenes. To the public, you remain the serene empress dowager, mother to a grateful emperor, humble steward of a thriving realm. But the reality, you're sharpening your claws. You begin rewriting rituals. State sacrifices are conducted in your name. Decrees refer to the Holy Mother and the Son of Heaven, your title first. One nervous scribe puts your name second and is promptly reassigned to count sheep in some distant border post. Ruizong tries to object, once, just once. He politely suggests that perhaps some ceremonies should focus more on his reign, since, he is technically the emperor. You smile, nod, and the next day, he's advised to take a period of spiritual reflection. His official duties are suspended. You take over entirely. Ruizong remains emperor in title, but you rule as Wang Taiho, the empress dowager regent, and soon even that title feels too modest. The ministers begin using new language, heavenly authority, divine wisdom. One even compares you to the goddess Guanyin, quirky tidbit. You start receiving envoys, directly foreign dignitaries, who traditionally would only kneel before an emperor now kneel before you. One Japanese envoy returns home and writes in his records, baffled, that the ruler of China is a woman who does not bother with disguises, but it's not enough. Not yet. You begin preparing the court for the inevitable by elevating women to higher ranks, not many, but enough. You sponsor poetry, music, and religious art that centers the feminine divine. Temples are erected where bodhisattvas are depicted as graceful women, in flowing robes mirroring you more than coincidence allows. Still, there's resistance. Old guard Confucian scholars argue that the heavens follow the yin-yang order, male over female, sun over moon. You counter with Buddhist scripture. You cite omens, comets, rainbows. Talking birds, yes, even talking birds appear at opportune moments to affirm your rise. One parrot supposedly squawks, "Long live the Holy Mother." It's stuffed and displayed in the throne room. Call it manipulation, Call it marketing. But it works. You even receive a prophecy discovered in an old Buddhist text, conveniently unearthed by monks you happen to sponsor, declaring that a female sage will rule the world. The text is dated, authenticated by trembling scribes, and read aloud before the entire court. Still, just to be safe, you silence several monks who disagree with the prophecy. One disappears after giving a slightly off-key sermon. Another writes a poem comparing you to a hungry tiger he's found dead in a lotus pond. And then, the final maneuver. You declare Ruizong unwell and gently, regretfully accept his abdication. He doesn't resist. He knows better now. He steps aside with a bow so deep it looks like defeat, and it is. You don't crown yourself emperor yet. No. You say you're just holding the throne for now, until someone more suitable can be chosen. But everyone knows that someone doesn't exist, or if he does, he's in your dungeon, filling out confessions in duplicate. You rule now not as empress dowager, not as regent, but as the living embodiment of heavenly will. The throne is still warm from your son's body, and you're already sitting on it like you were born there. You've struck, cleanly, quietly, effectively. Not with armies, but with edicts, not with poison, but with poetry and law. One son dethroned, the other outmaneuvered. The crown is closer than ever, and the ministers, they bow deeper now. There's a rhythm to control now, a pulse you can feel in every hallway of the palace, in the flutter of silk banners, in the murmured greetings of officials who fear misplacing a single syllable. But for all your quiet dominance, the real threat is an open rebellion. It's secrets, not swords, not arrows, whispers. So you start tightening the walls, drawing them inward. You turn the palace into a maze of listening ears and smiling spies. Everyone watches everyone. Eunuchs, once used only for delivering food and fanning flies off officials, now carry scrolls laced with ink and information. They pass notes like wind through keyholes, whispering what they overhear in moonlit corridors. You disguise it, of course. You frame it as maternal vigilance. You only want to keep your son safe. You're just looking after the realm's moral fiber. But in truth, you're spinning a web of informants so dense that not even your own relatives can breathe without you knowing how many syllables they exhale. It starts with court ladies. Harmless, delicate, barely literature, so people think. You train a select few to spy. They move through chambers unnoticed, pouring wine at banquets, fluffing pillows, dusting scrolls and listening. Then you move to junior officials, monks, even cooks. If a fish smells too fresh or a dumpling lands on the wrong desk, you want a full report. You build an entire Bureau of Secret Affairs. Official title, the Bureau of Equipment and Review. Sounds like they organize ceremonial robes, right? No, these are your shadow eyes. You empower low-born clerks to arrest nobles. You give eunuchs more authority than generals. The court doesn't just walk on eggshells, it breathes through silk veils, terrified that air might carry offense. Historians still argue whether this paranoia was justified or self-inflicted. Was there truly a vast conspiracy to remove you? Maybe. But when you live in a palace where tea can taste strange and greetings carry double meanings, can you afford to be wrong? And you aren't just orchestrating this, you're enjoying it. Because now, for the first time, there's no curtain between you and the throne. You've dismissed Ruizong, and you've declared that for the time being you'll rule directly. Not as emperor, you insist, but as acting sovereign. But the term has no precedent. And guess what? Neither do you. It's around this time that suggestions start appearing in court that perhaps you should take the throne officially. Just whispers at first. A poem recited in your honor that subtly aligns your birth date with a prophecy. A memorial from a provincial governor stating that only your divine virtue can stabilize the empire. You feign modesty. You reject the petitions. You sigh and say you're merely a placeholder. And then you accept. But not all at once. You begin with religious theater. Temples host ceremonies glorifying the feminine cosmic principle. Buddhist monks speak of a golden age led by a woman sage. You have murals commissioned depicting Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, with your face. Quirky tidbit. You even issue an imperial decree that the phoenix, traditionally the female counterpart to the dragon, is not lesser but superior. You're rewriting symbols now, the kind that define how people see the world itself. Still, not everyone is buying it. Some Confucian scholars remain stubbornly loyal to the idea of male rule. One particularly bold critic pens an essay titled On the Natural Order of Heaven and Earth, strongly implying that you're a cosmic mistake. He's invited to a private dinner. He never writes another essay. And now, let's talk about your family. You elevate members of the Wu clan. Your nephews, cousins, even remote relations, suddenly they're generals, ministers, governors. You reward them not because they're brilliant, most of them aren't, but because they're loyal. You need a foundation of blood, your blood, but favoritism comes at a price. Your Wu clan behaves like kids in a candy shop. They flaunt power, hoard wealth, and start making enemies faster than you can redecorate the throne room. You need them to bolster your rule, but they're a liability too loud, crass, and entitled. You keep them on a short leash, but sometimes the leash slips. Meanwhile, rumors begin leaking beyond the palace, in tea houses, on fishing boats, even. In mountain monasteries, people whisper about a woman who controls the empire with a silk glove and an iron blade. They joke that even the kitchen gods report to you. And while most say it quietly, some say it with admiration. A few begin to wonder, if heaven didn't want you in charge, why are you still here? And you're still not done. You begin staging public rituals, accepting the titles usually reserved for emperors. You offer sacrifices to heaven yourself. Your chariot is now drawn by 6 dragons, symbolizing absolute rule. You sit on the imperial days with no son beside you. No pretense left. Just power. Yours. One evening, as you walk past your reflection in the polished stone floor of the Hall of Supreme Harmony, you pause. There's no one beside you. No husband. No son. No veil between you and the throne. Just your own image still. Commanding. Inevitable. You've created a palace where no truth exists unless it echoes your voice. So now the palace bends to your will like reeds in wind. But power, real power, needs a divine story behind it. You're not just a clever woman in a golden robe. You need the heavens to nod, the stars to shuffle into place, and the people to believe that your rule is not only allowed, it's foretold. And you're going to give them just that. You begin staging omens. First, it's subtle. Reports arrive from distant provinces. A 2-headed calf is born under a full moon. A cherry tree blooms in winter. A cloud in the shape of a phoenix appears above the palace. Each of these is interpreted officially as signs of divine favor. Of course, the messages are delivered by local governors who were recently promoted by you. Coincidence? Next comes the big one. A previously unknown sutra called the Great Cloud Sutra is discovered by your loyal Buddhist monks. It proclaims that a future Buddha will take the form of a woman to bring peace to the world. The woman, naturally, is described in suspiciously familiar terms: graceful, wise, decisive, maybe wearing red silk with gold embroidery, and suspiciously fond of decree writing. You distribute copies of this prophecy to temples across the empire. Monks chant it at dawn. Scribes copy it by candlelight. Pilgrims whisper it as they climb mountain paths. By the time anyone thinks to question the text's authenticity, it's already been accepted by the public as truth. Historians still argue whether you helped compose the sutra or merely took advantage of its timing. Either way, it's genius. You're no longer just the woman who outmaneuvered her sons. You're a semi-divine ruler, destined to save the realm. But you don't stop there. You know how fragile faith can be. So you go after the doubters. Temples loyal to Confucian orthodoxy are reorganized. A few skeptical abbots retire early. Others are reassigned to distant provinces where, conveniently, the roads tend to flood for half the year. Anyone clinging too tightly to tradition suddenly finds themselves with a lot of quiet time to reconsider. You fund massive building projects, new temples, golden statues, engraved tablets inscribed with your virtues. These aren't just public works, they're propaganda in stone. You even order a colossal stele engraved with your 22 official merits. And here's the quirky part: the side describing your early life is blank, just polished stone. Historians are still baffled. Was it humility, a political puzzle, or a power move, saying, "I'll define myself when I choose"? Meanwhile, you begin rewriting the imperial calendar. Literally. You replace the Tang dynasty era name with your own, the Zhou dynasty. That's right, you're rebooting history. Never mind that you're technically usurping your late husband's family line. You declare that the mandate of heaven has shifted, and that the Wu family now carries it. Your Zhou dynasty is born. Not the ancient Zhou, mind you, your Zhou. A few conservative officials protest. One calls it an insult to the ancestors. He's found guilty of misrecording celestial calendars and is publicly executed. Slowly. As a lesson, the lesson works. People begin referring to you by your new title, sacred and divine emperor of heaven's mandate. Not empress, not regent, not mother. You're an emperor now. First and only female emperor in all of Chinese history. And you wear it like armor. Your public appearances become theatrical events. You ride in a golden chariot pulled by 6 matched horses. Eunuchs carry banners embroidered with verses, praising your virtue. Musicians strike up triumphant chords as you enter. You speak rarely, but when you do, the court falls silent as if a god has thundered through the rafters. Of course, there's more happening beneath the surface. Some whisper that you've taken lovers, handsome young men, barely out of their teens, promoted to personal attendants. Their titles, purely ceremonial, their real job, keeping the emperor's knights less lonely. You never confirm this, but you never deny it either. You let the rumors run because they make you more than imperial, they make you mythic. Still, you're not naive. You know what happens when myths grow too heavy to carry. So you keep governing, too. You reform tax codes. You promote agricultural innovation. You even open civil service exams to men from lower classes so long as they're loyal. Meritocracy, but with strings attached. And the people, they start warming to you. After all, their bellies are full, the roads are safer. Bandits have been hunted down, trade flows. There's even peace with the Tibetans for now. You've built something that works. And to the peasant planting millet or the merchant crossing a river, what does it matter if the emperor wears a crown or a hairpin? But even as you tighten your grip, you understand the stakes. The moment you let go, truly let go, you'll be devoured. Your sons are waiting. The old clans are waiting. The court poets, the tea-pouring eunuchs. Even the birds in the rafters, they're all waiting for you to blink. So you don't. You bathe in milk. You sleep with the dagger under your pillow. You consult astrologers, fortune tellers, dream interpreters. You cross-reference lunar calendars with palace schedules. You plan everything down to the hour because heaven might have granted you the mandate, but it won't keep it warm forever. You've made your move. And now, all of China is watching to see how long you can hold it. By now, your transformation is complete. No more regent, no more dowager. No more soft language about stewardship and motherhood. You are the emperor, not empress-emperor. And the realm has adapted. Officials bow deeper, historians write faster, and ministers have learned to address you with the same reverence once reserved for your late husband. But not everyone's convinced. And the most dangerous doubters are the ones who share your blood. Enter your second son Ruizong, still alive, still polite, still watching. He hasn't made a public fuss since you relieved him of the throne. He shuffles through ceremonies with downcast eyes and says all the right things. But lately, you've noticed, his eyes linger longer. When you issue decrees, he speaks a little more boldly in council. And worst of all, he's begun attracting sympathy. Sympathy is dangerous. Sympathy turns into support. Support turns into a coup. So, you do what you've always done best. You tighten the noose before they realize their necks are in it. First, you reduce Ruizong's public role. He's given an honorary title that sounds impressive, senior imperial advisor, but means absolutely nothing. His schedule is filled with temple visits, filial rites, and quiet meditations far from the capital. You assign his guards. You vet his visitors. You censor his correspondence. But you're not cruel. No, you send him gifts, silks, fruit, rare books, poetry scrolls. You let the world believe you're the picture of maternal grace. Meanwhile, you monitor every word he utters, every sigh that passes through his lips. Then you start eliminating those around him, one by one. His closest allies are accused of corruption, sedition, or moral negligence. Some are exiled, others mysteriously disappear. One commits suicide, under questionable circumstances. Another is arrested after a coincidental discovery of seditious scrolls buried under his estate. How careless of him! Historians still debate whether Ruizong ever truly conspired against you, or if you simply anticipated his potential and struck before he found the courage to act. The truth doesn't matter. The perception is what sticks. And, just to drive the point home, you make an announcement: a new heir will be named. Not Ruizong, not Zhongzong, but someone else. This stuns the court. It's the ultimate maternal betrayal, removing both sons from succession. You claim it's for the stability of the realm, that the mandate of heaven must pass to the most capable, not the most related. You don't name the heir just yet. That keeps the court guessing, and guessing means distracted. Distracted means docile, but underneath this move is fear. Real, bone-deep fear. Because if either of your sons gains traction, even the illusion of influence, the web you've spent decades spinning could snap overnight. So you double down. You commission grander temples. You host lavish public rituals where you perform sacred rites alone, bathe in light, while your sons stand at a respectful distance like distant cousins at a wedding. You elevate new officials, young, unconnected, and deeply loyal. Many are men with no noble background, risen purely on merit. You reshape the bureaucracy into a mirror, your reflection, everywhere. Meanwhile, in private, Ruizong becomes a ghost. He writes poetry, harmless stuff about mountains and plum blossoms. He sends letters to family, carefully worded, folded with trembling hands. You allow it, because it makes him look weak. The empire forgets his voice. Even his servants begin calling him. His quietness, still, you don't exhale. There's always the chance that nostalgia could resurrect his legacy. So you preempt it. You commission a series of official histories written under your supervision, of course. In them, your sons are praised, gently, but always second to your wisdom. You're described as the guiding force behind their reigns, the necessary correction to their inexperience. No one reads between the lines, they memorize them. Quirky tidbit, you even create an official court fashion style, long, flowing sleeves, soft collars, and embroidered motifs that blend dragon and phoenix, symbols of male and female authority combined. It's your way of showing that you've transcended gender. You are not just a woman in power. You are power, period. But the court still murmurs. A faction of scholars begins questioning your decision to exclude your sons. Quietly, of course. One suggests that naming a successor outside the imperial family is unprecedented. He's reassigned to a border town plagued with wolves. Another quotes Confucius at dinner he has never seen again. Still, there's one voice you can't silence. You're owned out. You pace more. You consult omens twice as often. You send for fortune tellers late at night, asking whether a mother can ever truly erase her sons. And though they assure you, bowing low and trembling, you know the truth. Your sons are waiting for you to slip, to age, to falter. And when you do, the knives will come out wrapped in silk, coated in nostalgia, blessed by the very Confucian rites you've spent years overriding. So you keep moving. You renew your grip. You host an imperial inspection tour riding through provinces with drums and dancers. Incense thick in the air, officials kneeling in the mud just to glimpse you. You visit sacred sites, issue proclamations, forgive minor crimes. You let the people see the emperor their emperor. Because if your sons ever come back into favor, you want the people to miss you. And late at night, when the incense smoke curls like a question mark around your bed, you stare into the darkness and ask yourself, not out loud, of course, never out loud, whether it was worth it. Because motherhood is a story of sacrifices, but yours came with a crown. You've outlived rivals, rewritten prophecies, and watched your own sons bend under the weight of your shadow. By now, your name is stamped on coins, carved into tablets, sung in temples, and stitched into banners that flap above a world entirely shaped by your will. But no reign lasts forever. Your breath has grown shallower in recent weeks. The court physicians fuss with deer horn powder and ginseng tinctures. You allow it. You smile. But you've seen this before. The long, slow fade of a dynasty is not always marked by rebellion. It begins with breathlessness, shaky hands, and too much help getting out of bed. Still, you don't flinch. You've survived worse than dying, and you're not finished just yet. You call for one last round of reforms because even as your vision clouds, your foresight doesn't. You know what's coming. You begin consolidating. You release a few prisoners. You soften a few punishments. You reappoint familiar faces from the Tang clan to minor positions. Nothing major, just enough to ease the inevitable transition. Because here's the irony. To preserve your legacy, you now have to let go of it. You quietly announce that Zhongzong, yes, the first son you deposed all those years ago, is to be reinstated as crown prince. The ministers gasp, some openly weep, not out of joy, out of fear. They know what this means. You're preparing your exit. This isn't weakness, it's strategy. Because if you die with both sons still locked away, the backlash will be catastrophic. You fought off conspiracies, but death doesn't flinch at your title. Historians still argue whether this final decision was out of guilt, pragmatism, or some complicated maternal instinct buried beneath decades of political carnage. The truth is, it was all of the above. The day you officially stepped down is strangely silent. No parades, no grand announcements, just a curt order, delivered with your seal. That Zhongzong is to resume the throne under your guidance temporarily, of course. The empire exhales. The Wu dynasty, your brief but blazing invention, is dissolved. The Tang is back, sort of, because even though your name is removed from coins, even though your face disappears from official portraits, your legacy lingers like the scent of jasmine in a sealed scroll chest. Zhongzong may sit on the throne again, but he knows, everyone knows, that it's only because you let him. The court reshuffles. Some of your loyalists are retired, others reassigned. A few are arrested. That's the price of transition. You've prepared them for this moment. Most don't resist. They vanish like sand into silk folds. And you? You spend your last days in relative quiet, but the palace still listens when you clear your throat. Your words still carry weight. You still sign the occasional decree on behalf of heaven. Quirky tidbit, in your final weeks, you develop a fondness for jujube cakes and staring at cranes in the imperial garden. one bird, a pure white creature with wings like clouds, visits your window every morning. The servants say it's a sign. You smile, because you were the one who had the bird brought there in the first place. But you let them believe it. You've always known how useful a good omen can be. The day you pass, the palace is drenched in soft rain. Some say it was heaven weeping. Others say it was the ancestors reclaiming their most troublesome daughter. You, of course, would probably say, let them guess. I've already rewritten the ending. Your funeral is elaborate, befitting an emperor. Zhongzong, your son, your rival, your legacy declares a full mourning period. But historians notice, your tomb inscription is careful. Your title is edited. Your reign framed as an interruption. The scribes try to tuck you into a side chapter of the Tang dynasty. But history is not so easily bent. Your story, your real story lives on in every cracked ceramic figure of a female ruler. Every scroll whispering about phoenixes and power. Every student who scribbles your name in the margins of a Confucian textbook, wondering, how did she do it? And now, your name is taught, dissected, debated. They call you ruthless, they call you brilliant, they call you mad, and occasionally, they call you mother. But mostly, they remember you, because you didn't just seize a throne. You cracked the sky open and climbed in. So now you're lying there in your bed, head cushioned in silence, eyes tracing the curve of the dark ceiling, as if it still holds secrets worth solving. The echo of your voice, one sharp and commanding, fades into something softer, more breath than word, more breeze than decree. Outside your chamber, the bamboo rustles in the evening wind, tapping gently against the palace eaves like a memory that won't quite let go. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls slow, deliberate, final. The kind of sound that feels like the world catching its breath. You did it. Not because you were born to, but because you refused to wait for permission. You rewrote the rules with ink, with blood, with silence. You ruled not with a sword, but with a whisper that somehow carried across mountains. And though they tried to bury your story beneath dynasties and titles, it always finds its way back. In the hush of a library, in the corner of a museum, in the glint of a silver coin once touched by your command. So now, as the night folds in, as your heart slows its relentless beat, you let go not with fear, but with quiet satisfaction. The empire may move on, but you've already carved your name into the bone of history. Sleep now. The fight's over. The throne is empty, and the world will never forget who sat in it.